Hello and welcome back to Podcasting is Praxis, new and improved Podcasting is Praxis with better equipment. I'm David, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm James, my pronouns are they and them.
I'm Jamie, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Rob, and mine are also he and him.
And I'm Alistair, and I'm also he and him.
Sounds a bit better, doesn't it?
It does sound better, though it's strange to have Rob being the pauper who's still on a shitty mic. If
That's
anything,
true.
you'd expect it to be the other way around.
That's true. I am once again travelling the world, or visiting my parents, whichever comes first.
Are your parents on the world?
Occasionally.
On the world. Yeah, so we're back, full cast, we're all here. I have returned. I had to take last week off because I was just fucked. But I'm now no longer fucked. So
Now he's fucking furious.
Yeah.
And there's a only 20% chance I'll be called out of this podcast recording session to go do work, so...
And I'm dying in my sweatbox, so we have all that going for us. Welcome to this recording.
Yay!
yeah,
All the things necessary for another fantastic episode of Podcasting is Praxis.
exactly, yeah. That's us being fucking miserable and it's too warm.
Yeah, we just, for benefit of listeners, we just spent the better part of an hour trying to get all the audio working. And, it was like the scene in Event Horizon where you get a recording of them all tearing each other apart. That, but in audio form.
Anyway, okay, so let's kick off. So, like I said, I had a bit of time off and I was fucked. I'm no longer fucked. And part of the reason I'm no longer fucked is because I was reinvigorated by the posting.
It's been very powerful today.
It's been so good. It's been so good. And the reason that the posting has been so good is because the direct action has also been good.
It really has.
Oh, it's been so fucking good.
All the worst fucking people are extremely annoyed over events over the last week or so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely pissing and moaning to degrees hitherto unknown. Beautiful. And this is all because the RMT has organised a strike, and a lot of people don't like that.
The RMT have managed to defeat Ukraine, even though Vladimir Putin couldn't. We had about 9 main characters today.
Yeah, it happened really fucking quick, yeah.
But yeah, part of the other reasons why the posting's been so good is because of the flight that got grounded that was going to take a bunch of the refugees to Rwanda, and they all got stays on being deployed, which is great. And Mélenchon did a lot better than fucking Macron was certainly hoping for, and the centrists are realising how, well, I say the centrist Ian Dunn is perhaps coming to a startling realisation that centrism might not be all it's cracked up to be.
Is he fuck us like?
No,
He'll have forgotten it like already.
Yeah, and then time is going to elapse, and then he's going to forget that things have happened.
Also, not all of the posting was good in response to the Rwanda flight, because did you see that fucking was it Lilico?
Oh, if it was Lilico, it was fucking atrocious, that's guaranteed. Deporting people to Rwanda is exactly the same as what the Good Samaritan did in the Bible.
Yeah, I saw that. It made me very, very angry.
People with the name Andrew are not making a good name for themselves. Has to be said.
No.
Sorry, Andrew Law, if you're listening to this for some reason.
Fuck you, Andrew Adonis, if you're listening.
Yeah, always. No, there was that fucking Marina Hyde article where she was like, well, this is proven that it's all just talk. All of it's talk, and it's like there was a fucking plane on the runway.
Yeah, but that was just to annoy Ian Dunn.
The real protagonist of reality.
Yeah, like, oh no, this TV show that Life is these events are happening specifically to annoy me, not because they're actually taking place in the actual real world that we all inhabit.
Yeah.
Fucking...
Yeah. But anyway, all of that aside, we are going to be talking about the strikes, and I will, note the S at the end of that. Save that for later. How did we get here? The government has cut about £4 billion from the combined budget of Network Rail and TfL, which has resulted in the bosses of Network Rail and TfL just doing what they always do and trying to gut the paying conditions of workers.
Also, let's not forget that this was that cut also for TfL was specific because TfL was about to go, well, was close to going bust during Rona, and then the government said, well, we'll only fund TfL if you give us like control over a lot more and the finances and the budget. So that's one of the reasons that TfL is getting fucked, is they had to sign like a blood contract under duress with the central government.
Yeah, they absolutely fucked it over purely because the mayor is not a fucking Tory. Which again, debatable in some ways. But yeah, so the things that they're doing are basically, it's what they always fucking do. They're expecting people to work longer, for longer, and all for a shittier pension. They're cutting a bunch of, I think it's like 50% of safety inspections on rail infrastructure. And also facilitating mass redundancies, of which there's no guarantees about whether or not they'll be like compulsory.
Can someone remind me if it's good? If safety inspections on rails and
it's fine, Alistair, because you can automate that these days. It's just you go to the technology wizard and then you say one safe train, please.
Yeah, you just put 5 trains on one screen and you've saved so much money.
Imagine 5 trains at the end of a cliff.
I'm running 7 instances of Train Simulator 2021, and you will not believe how safe the trains are in real life now.
Along with that shit, though, they're also doing internal fire and rehire.
Cool.
So in other words, forcing a fucking contract on someone for basically the same job, but with less pay or get to fuck. Which, awesome. So they balloted all the members and they went on fucking strike.
And we love to see it.
Yeah.
We fucking do. Up the workers. They are on strike today. They're recording Tuesday. They'll be on strike again on Thursday and on Saturday this week. And they'll be manning picket lines nationally. So find your nearest big train station. Might see a picket line. Go say hi. Give me support.
And explicitly do not cross it.
Yeah, unless you're on your way to kill Sonic the Hedgehog.
I don't know. There's many things you can say about Dr. Robotnik. He might want to like turn all animals into robots, etc. But I don't know. Strikebreaker?
Honestly, I don't think Dr. Robotnik would stoop to working for the IEA, if I'm fairly honest with you.
Yeah, he's got more character and principle than that.
Yeah, and it's canon he's a feminist, so surely, I mean, that might imply his politics aren't completely irredeemable.
I'm going to leave the Dr. Robotnik canon to you, James. I'm going to just park that.
I'm just going to assume from this point on that he's actually just a really cool fucking third world Maoist or some shit like that, and just leave it.
It's frankly disgusting that you're all dead naming Dr. Eggman.
I know his real name's Robotnik. Eggman is the nickname. So I've said too much.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. Trap sprung.
James, go
anyway,
on.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the Sonic the Hedgehog DeviantArt page.
1 second, I'm just going to type David the Hedgehog into Google. Be right back.
No, let's not. So, swerving that shit, let's actually talk about something potentially funnier, which is some of the reactions to the strike. Because, as we know, that's where the comedy lies, is watching these fucking fools lose their minds over the most minor of shit. First up, the Lib Dems. Did we all see the Lib Dem tweet?
It was only briefly there. So briefly.
Yeah, the dirty delete tweet, yeah. Frankly, the government and RMT are just as bad as each other. The country is sick of them both playing politics with people's lives.
Imagine a government playing politics.
Imagine playing politics with people's lives. I mean, you might get like a back tax out of that.
I know. Wild that a trade union and a government would take things to do with either of those.
Thank you, Lib Dems, for once again proving that bullying works.
Yeah. Exactly. See, what you just do is you put all your society's demands into the big graphic calculator you carry around in your breast pocket, and then you just press start, and then it gives you the outcome. That's how politics works.
And the answer is fuck you.
The answer is 5B for a plastic bag in exchange for killing 160,000 people.
This fucking tweet is like the next best ideological snapshot since then.
Yeah.
For the Lib Dems, 100%.
Did you see the fucking idiot in the replies who posted that fucking, political cartoon from, like, the 19th century of the penny farthing?
The bikes, yeah.
Posting that in my fucking steampunk hat while I'm at it.
People were pointing out that's satirical, and it's like, no, it's not. Perfectly encapsulates my politics. How could it be a joke?
So we'll move on for the Lib Dems, because obviously the Lib Dems will be fucking shit on this.
I was just astonished to hear from the Lib Dems. I genuinely thought they died. I'd forgotten they existed.
They have, so it's fine. So the Party of Labour, will we start from the top? Will we look at the saviour of left-wing Labour?
Take it from the top.
Andy Burnham was asked what he thinks about Labour frontbenchers who were told not to join picket lines, and he said, I'm going to leave that one.
That's just good politics, that, man.
Yeah,
here's an opportunity for you to
smart
show
politics.
any degree of spine, and I'm gonna leave it. Just no, thank you. Next one.
Yeah. Why would you? Why would you?
Well, and also, like, it's just fucking shades of. You remember when Andy Burnham was like a hero to like the soft left for when he did that thing of looking at his phone somewhere during Rona, and to be fair, he did a decent thing with like getting more money for Manchester. And then, like, well, he was a hero again, and everybody forgot that this is who he's been all along, because I fucking remember him from 2015 and 16.
I mean, Andy Burnham is one of those people who, like, he is less bad than if a Tory was, like, mayor of Manchester or whatever, but as soon as he came anywhere close to the actual Labour Party machine, then I would not trust him to cross the fucking road without somehow throwing me under the bus, you know?
Yeah.
He's got huge mugs on immigration energy.
He's very much
time.
the sort of person who wants to get the buses running so he can throw you under them.
Yeah. So part of that, though, the first part there about the Labour frontbenchers. Labour frontbenchers have been told not to go anywhere near the picket lines. That's the order from Starmer's office.
Yeah, God forbid you're seen with Labour.
Yeah, they will be disciplined in an at-present unknown way by the Whip's office. The Whips will decide what to do after the strikes, because I assume that they need to focus group what punishment would look best or some shit like that. No idea.
Can we also talk about, like, the reasoning for why they're being told not to join the picket lines? One theory that I sort of can't remember which, it was some fucking idiot journo. I mean, they all kind of blend into each other eventually, but they were saying that because it would be perfect bait for perfect fodder, for a general election campaign where you say, oh, these people want to take you back to the 70s, even though the thing that is allegedly going back to the 70s, i.e. strikes happening, is happening under the Tories. So, okay. Yeah. If you want
an indication of how well it's going just now, I've just went on to Twitter and it's trending in United Kingdom #NeverLabel. So yeah, it's going well. They're still getting fucked over because like every single cunt on the right is like they secretly support the strikes. Keir Starmer loves it because they keep quoting shit that he said in his pledges in 2020 to try and get the leader's job, and it's all coming up great for him.
I can't believe they've managed to outplay him at like 9D chess.
It's because it's not a memo writing competition.
Are you saying, David, that having no consistent principles is perhaps actually a bad thing in politics?
Oh, let's not say he's got no consistent principles. It's very consistent if you have all principles.
He is all principles to all people.
Exactly. So yeah, I've actually I found something interesting on Twitter. 10 MPs in Labour's top team have signalled support for striking rail workers, and 5 have defied an order not to picket, including a shadow minister and a party whip. Now, the rule was that it was only shadow minister, anyone with a fucking position, shadow ministers or PPSs that weren't allowed to go, because obviously they're not going to try and police the backbenches where they think they've put all of the most left-wing ones. But I've got a handy little list. I love to have a list.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, we do like us a good list.
No, lists can be good as well. So Nav Mishra, who is a whip, Kate Osborne, the Shadow Northern Ireland PPS, Mick Whitley, the Shadow Climate PPS, Alex Sobel, the Shadow Environment Minister, and Paula Barker, the Shadow Defence PPS. They have all been on picket lines.
Tell you what, though, we could definitely do with some fucking shadow climate.
Say, just out of curiosity, I assume there was a strong presence from the entire Socialist Campaign Group who were out together with a strong statement. I'm assuming that's what happened.
Probably. Do you know what? I haven't looked into it. I don't care because they're fucking irrelevant. But these 5 have decided that they'll go to the picket lines. What happens to them, like I say, it'll be focus tested. We'll find out later. Anna Sarwar was also out, but Scottish Labour cares. And the only other one here that it says supportive of rail strike, the only other name beyond those 6 who was supportive but hasn't been to a picket line is Wes Streeting.
Yeah, because
he apologised for being supportive, though.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
He's already apologised for preemptively going to the picket, so he can't go now.
He did the clever thing. He got out in front, he said the support bit, and then he rode it back before the order was given about discipline. So he has beat Starmer at the all principles at all times game.
It's called playing both sides.
Yeah, that way he'll always come out on top.
I honestly think he's fucked. I don't think you can...
Who?
I don't think... Streeting.
Nah.
No?
Nah. He just jumped the gun. Like, that's it. It doesn't matter. Again, like, nothing that these people do matters, because it's all about shit that other people want for them and project onto them anyway. They're all hollow vessels for other people in the party to project towards.
See, I think he's kind of blown it just because now the right wing, which would have supported him, is going to go, yeah, but he went out on the pickets.
Well, they know that he's their guy, right?
Well, put it this way, right? I'm looking at this list, and it signals whether or not they have been supportive, if they've not been supportive, or if they've been ambiguous. Would you like to know how many have said that they were not supportive of the strikes?
Go on.
One Labour MP. Pat McFadden.
Of course. Pat McFadden, come on down and claim your cunt prize.
Isn't he Phil Mitchell?
Yeah, he's like Jamie. He's desiccated Phil Mitchell. He's if you buried him in a tomb for 100 years, you'd get Pat McFadden.
There have been apparently 69 nice Labour MPs just have not made their opinion known whatsoever about the strikes. 69, that's not exactly a small proportion of the parliamentary party. So yeah, cool. The party of Labour doing fucking great. We love to see it. What about members of the public, though? How are members of the public taking it?
Oh, no.
Well, very, very normally. For example, there was an egg in Manchester who got very annoyed. Yo at RMT Union, don't say you haven't been warned about my planned confrontation of your picket lines today and all strike days. Just be thankful I'm flying solo on this one, but trust me, I won't be quiet. You're misspelt gonna feel my wrath, every last one of you. Hashtag rail strikes are unnecessary. A very normal egg.
Can't wait to feel his wrath, though.
The key part of this, though, is that he is flying solo because is this the guy who was like the reason he's mad is because he was trying to get back with his ex?
He was going to turn up unannounced at his ex's house.
Yes, it was.
And can't now because the trains are cancelled.
Yeah, so yet again proving that strike action is actually a very cool and good thing.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this and your ex-boyfriend is like a really raggy egg cunt, then just fucking you know what I mean, move house now before he gets to you.
Yeah.
The BBC ran an incredible fucking article titled Rail Strikes, the Passengers Who Fear They Will Miss Life Events.
Oh, fuck off.
Oh, God, my heart fucking bleeds, man.
There's some fucking belters in here.
Give me a life event, David. Tell me what we're missing out.
Who's taking the train to life events? Do you know what I mean? Not me, certainly, right? I can't afford like 800 quid for a fucking ticket.
I thought that board game had little cars, but I may be wrong about that.
So Adam Roberts from Lee on the Solent has been unable to get to London, where he works as a freelance bike fitter at cycle shops 4 days a week. So getting to work is the life event that he is missing out on.
Right.
I really was expecting something more like the birth of my septuplets or something.
A freelance bike fitter. Like, is there a picture of him? Because I imagine he's hipster as fuck.
Yeah, I was going to say, waxed mustaches everywhere.
Yeah.
The show notes were long enough, so I didn't include them.
He's getting paid a lot for those freelance bike fittings because it's like no one else in the Greater London area can do penny farthings.
No, I can assure you there's plenty of people who can in fucking Greater London. This is a busy time of year for me. It's a specialist job that's very seasonal, and this is a time when I'd be earning the bulk of my money, but it's a complete write-off, says Mr. Roberts.
What, 3 days?
Considered...
How is it seasonal? I'm really confused. How is bike repair seasonal?
Because more people are using their bikes in the summer.
Because bikes hibernate in winter, I forget this.
No, just people get lazy and don't bother because the British winter is miserable as fuck. Like, that's fair. That bit I'm not going to grudge him. He's kind of like fine, whatever. But while he considered driving part of the way, he faces the same problem of trains not running early enough. Plus, he needs to get the tube when he reaches London. He says, I don't understand why such a skeleton service is being run, even on days when the strike isn't even on. It's a complete farce.
Has he considered cycling a bike?
Do you know what, right? If he's a fucking bike wizard, like, physician, heal thyself.
Has he possibly fucking considered that the reason there's like really shitty services being run even on days where the strikes, aren't going, is because the money isn't getting pumped into fucking services because they will not pump the money into fucking staff.
All right, so we've had the bike wizard. Who else is sad?
We have Wajma Mansouri, a nurse living in West London, says she has no idea how she will get to work on Tuesday evening to look after patients in palliative care. We are talking about patients' lives and the emergency service workers who are already stretched, low paid, and going through the trauma of the pandemic. We nurses work round the clock in low paid, stressful jobs, dealing with life and death situations. I understand why people would want to go on strike, but it has to be done in a sensible fashion.
Do you know, the more this is going on, the more I'm feeling up the wobbly is one big union for everyone. Just like,
it would be better, yeah.
Do you know what it is, though? It's like, I don't want to... I'm not trying to disparage the work that nurses or, like, anyone does, but this isn't the emergency... Like, not everyone who works in the NHS is the emergency services.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you call an ambulance, they don't turn up, like, you might think they took them 4 hours because they travelled there by train, but I assure you they fucking didn't. It's not like the fucking fire brigade are all, like, stood outside a station somewhere going, well, your house is burning down, but I don't want to cross a picket line.
Yeah, terribly sorry, the fire truck has to come by train before we can go out, so you're screwed.
I mean, Jamie, it depends on whose house is burning down, because I can think of a few at the moment.
Yeah, I've got one more example here from another member of the public.
Oh, is this the very casual member of the public?
If this life event that they can't get to is work again, I'm going to find them and beat them to death.
No, this isn't. This is actually from a different article. But a girl at a London school is planning a 4.5 is planning a 4.5 hour journey to make her maths A-level exam on Tuesday as the rail strike is set to cause severe travel disruption. Other pupils have had to book hotels or stay with friends as the country braces for the first day of the walkout, the worst train strike for 3 decades. The travel headache described by the head teacher of the City of London School for Girls is just one example of the disruption facing millions of people this week.
That's a casual school, that is. I had a quick look at that casual school.
No, it's definitely a casual school. Jenny Brown said the double whammy of a rail and London tube strike on Tuesday was especially problematic for the central London school, where the vast majority use public transport. Let's have a look at the fees on that school. £6,888 per term, exclusive of school lunches.
Imagine paying that much fucking money for your kid to go to school and you still have to fork out for the fucking foie gras. Fucking can't even say it, it's so incredulous. Foie gras at lunch.
Yeah, just fucking absolute fucking joke. Who gives a fuck?
The smallest plates a school has ever seen.
Stop trying to get me to feel sympathy for private fucking school kids. Bolt.
Imagine if, like, you saved up the 18 grand a year to send your kid to this private school, and then, like, the thing that tipped it over into, like, being unaffordable was the train fare on top.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, quite frankly, if you're going to school for 18k a year, you should get, like, your own disc of Zinch to just, like, fly you there.
Okay, well, that's some reactions from the public. So let's focus on some reactions from the media. This is big Corbyn years type shit. Their fears are our hopes, basically. The Daily Mail
tears are our nourishment.
Yes, the Daily Mail is fucking terrified because workers are learning that they may have power, and they are beginning to see what happens if said things are joined up and roughly coordinated in time at very least.
And I welcome their hatred.
Here's a couple of headlines from the Daily Mail from today. Barristers vote to strike this month over legal aid funding, and teachers threaten to walk out next term unless they get a 12% pay rise, as doctors, bin men and postmen plot to join summer of strikes.
Plot.
David, talk dirty to me. Keep
second
talking.
headline.
Like they're meeting in a fucking cellar somewhere.
Summer strikes, plague spreads. Teachers, doctors, binmen, barristers and postmen could join rail workers in heaping walkout misery upon Britain. So, what I've done is
late night. This is podcasting after dark. Oh, yeah.
I have collated some examples of the things which they feel. So,
hang on,
in the transport sector...
should we get that fucking Skyrim, the One Day Fear music on in the background for this? Because it's got extreme kind of... Legends have foretold the dreaded strike.
Let me just put on my too small kimono before you start talking again.
So, in transport... not only are the current strikes by the RNT currently going on, but there's upcoming ballots of TSSA members in Network Rail and other train companies that could result in more strikes, similar strikes, by July. And
Can we actually talk about how fucking good Mick Lynch has been today as well? Because
fucking
holy
king.
shit, one man army of like just kicking the shit out of every single fucking news broadcaster in the country in one day by just not giving a shit about the stupid game.
New phone who dis on Jenny Chapman was fucking glorious.
So beautiful.
That was good. I think my favourite one was the Kay Burley interaction. Like, that was just fucking beautiful. Like, she was actively goading him into saying, so what happens if people do cross the picket lines? What happens if they don't listen to being asked? What happens, Mick?
Are you going to beat
Mick?
them? Are you going to punch them? Are you going to force them?
Yeah. He was like, what kind of picket lines are you talking about? And she was like the miners' strike, and he just turned around and he went, it's just a picket at a train station.
That was the greatest part. Is there's literally like striking workers behind him, just calmly stood there doing their picketing very very coolly, and just he turns around and is like, what do you think this is going to turn into?
Yeah, sitting like, this isn't Orgreave. Like, fuck off.
It should be, but it's
not. There's not even. I mean, perhaps with a different outcome.
With a different result. Yeah.
But Mick Lynch has been fucking fantastic, just outright calling government ministers liars, basically saying that backbenchers should shut the fuck up because they're just feeding lines they don't understand. Like, it's just been so good.
Oh my god, he is obviously knows his shit because, he's the head of a union that incorporates a shitload of transport workers, and you're just some backbench MP that's been given, you need to bring up these talking points on this show, and he talks about...
I think the technical term for the head of a union is a baron, is it not?
Oh yeah, I bet he goes on holiday and everything, and drives a car, the prick.
Those union barons of the Gilded Age with their golden swimming pools, and hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, David, keep talking dirty to me.
Also in transport, there are 500 Heathrow-based British Airways check-in staff that are being balloted, which is over a refusal to reverse a 10% pandemic pay cut that they took, which will likely also result in strikes in July. So that's going to be more rail strikes and Heathrow fucking strikes in July.
No one can escape this fucking hellhole until we get a raise.
Correct.
We have the NASUWT, one of the teachers' unions, will ballot if they do not get given straight up a 12% pay rise. So they are preempting the offer and just saying it better be this much, otherwise we'll ballot. Fucking beautiful.
God.
The NEU have been offered 3% of a pay rise, which doesn't come close to covering inflation. And that's just for this year, let alone it's not spread back or anything like that. and they're potentially going to get balloted as well. Obviously, with teachers' unions, pay isn't the only dispute. Pay's been decreasing in real terms over the last few years, but workload has been dramatically increasing at the same time. And altogether, those unions have over 750,000 members nationally.
Yeah, keep talking, David.
Big strike.
Keep going.
Big strike. Communications workers, shout out to Jordan.
Is he the guy that does the music on the other podcast?
Yes, on the other podcast, yes.
Which podcast's that?
This one. BT Group is facing its first national industrial action ballot since 1987. And BT Group is BT, it's OpenReach, it's EE, so, like, again, quite a lot involved in that.
Gamers rise up.
And Royal Mail staff have been offered a 2% wage rise. And today, the Communications Workers Union served notice to Royal Mail Group bosses that they intend to ballot their members.
Fuck yeah.
And with good
Civil
cause.
servants... I'm nowhere near finished this list. There's so many. Civil servants, so we've got barristers. I've included them with civil servants here. They kind of are, but kind of not. But they are striking over the next 4 weeks due to what is effectively a near 30% pay cut that they've taken. And also a 43% real terms cut to the legal aid budget over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, that's been a fucking disgrace.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And PCS union is voting in September for a 10% pay rise across the civil service, with about 180,000 members taking part in that one. Next up, we've got local government. So this is the bins.
Woo!
The bins. Up the fucking bins. Remember
The
when
bins
the
are
bins
going to
were
be
up?
hard again.
Yeah. Waste management, library staff, teaching assistants and care workers have all been backed in parts, just responsible for them by Unison, GMB and Unites. That's three of the biggest unions in the country.
What about that weird parish council nonce that we were in with on Twitter the other week? Is he on strike?
I don't know or care. I hope he is, and I hope he's not in a union, and I hope he loses his job. I vaguely remember him, but yeah, fuck it, I don't know or care. But yeah, so those three unions have backed local government staff for the demand of an at least £2,000 increase in yearly salary.
All right, excellent.
Extremely fucking here for it.
Fucking great.
And the NHS and General Health Services. The British Medication Association, BMA, intends to ballot members over junior doctors' pay, demanding a restorative 22% pay rise.
Outstanding.
Fuck yeah.
The Royal College of Nursing is demanding a 5% above inflation pay rise.
So that's like a 70% rise at the moment. That's fucking great, because they've been fucked over repeatedly in the last decade.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
yeah. And the Union Unison has threatened strike action if the next pay offer that comes in for NHS staff is anything under inflation. Inflation currently being noted as at 9.2%.
In real terms, it's closer to 12, though, isn't it, Rob?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Yeah,
it depends on how you do numbers, Fuckstein, but it's anywhere between 9 and 12%.
Yeah.
Depending on the day.
Yeah.
I think everyone should get a pay rise, like, of the same amount that fucking gas prices have gone up.
Oh, no, but don't you understand, though? That will lead to rampant inflation.
Oh, no.
Do I look like I give a fuck?
Jamie, your assets could be worth less if there's inflation.
Oh, rip me.
I know, we just bought these microphones, fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Look, and the chair.
The chair and all, yeah.
My precious Beanie Baby collection is about to go down the toilet.
And the drawn tablet that I'm just like itching to fucking get onto Jackbox with.
Could you imagine if there was a fucking Beanie Baby version of each of us? So we've got the Honey Monster. I feel like David would be Grimace for some reason.
A red grimace. Yes, that's David, all right.
say one thing about Wes Streeting and accelerationism, and here you fucking go, your Grimace.
So that just confirms it, David. That's very much no, not Grimace, not
That
me.
is what a Grimace would say.
So that's all the strikes we've got to look forward to, or potential strikes, I should say, but probable, let's be honest. What does the government intend to do about this? How do you think this government intends to massage the public towards not supporting the strikers?
Having everyone shot?
They will just pay them.
They'll just pay them. No, it's neither of those things. Thank for the first one. Unfortunately, the second one.
Well, if their reaction to
Are they going to deport more people?
Yes, but not for this.
Yeah, but if their reaction to what the RMT want is anything to go by, they're just going to sit there and go, "Oh, it's not up to us. It's between us. It's between the striking workers and their employer because we've conveniently farmed out all of these public institutions to the private sector. We can wash our hands of it."
It's nothing to do with us. It's Labour's strikes. So the only reasonable course of action for the British public is to thank Keir Starmer.
Yeah. I honestly think they're waiting until this does maximum damage to Labour and Labour come out against the strikes, at which point they'll then turn around and just cut a deal.
I've just seen also trending on the UK's hashtag Cheers Keir. It's going so well. No, what they're going to do is, if you hark back to COVID...
what do you mean back to?
No, it's the pandemic that's over, mate. That's the one that I'm harking back to because it's all finished now. But really what I'm saying is, like the initial stages of that, Boris Johnson said that Britons must endure these strikes and perhaps more in order to beat the union and reform the railways. He said, "We need, I'm afraid, everybody, and I say this to the country as a whole, we need to get ready to stay the course. To stay the course because these reforms, these improvements in the way we run our railways are in the interests of the travelling public. They will help to cut costs for fare payers up and down the country."
Someone should thank that cunt.
Yeah, in other words, shut the fuck up and just pretend everything's normal, and eventually economy will be better for it. So it's just the COVID line again. Johnson's found this one weird fucking trick of just don't really do anything and pray that it works out. And he survived the first time he did that on a massive national event, so now it's the sticking plaster for anything that comes up.
Also,
And
everything else is
exactly
work.
what's
He's
gonna
not going to
happen.
fucking do anything else.
To be fair, ignoring a problem and hoping it goes away is kind of how I deal with problems. So I can respect that.
Yeah, but that's not what he's doing here. What he's doing here is he's given the sort of the nod to all the fucking that fucking tragic egg cunt from Manchester and his ilk, where it's go down to the picket line and maybe do a fucking murder or two. You've got my support because we need to crush the unions to save Brexit.
Yeah, to some degree, but at the same time, he's been incredibly fucking measured in it. If you consider what he's normally like, he could easily be much more fucking damaging than this. And I genuinely think this is more of a, I'm just going to try and pretend it's not happening type thing.
He's just had his nose replaced, so you know what I mean? He's probably on the good drugs.
I can't believe I got a fucking alert on my fucking phone about that.
What about the good drugs?
No. The other thing that they're saying at the moment is we shouldn't want pay rises.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because dread
that's why
inflation
inflation
might
is so
come.
high, yeah.
Oh wait, dread inflation is already here. Why?
Well,
how do we have inflation if nobody's got a pay rise? I'm really confused.
Tragically for everyone involved, those cunts aren't the boss of me, so...
Yeah, so Downing Street also urged private sector organisations to show restraint in awarding pay rises. Spokesperson said that given inflation was nudging double digits, we need to, as a country, avoid doing anything that would stoke inflationary pressures further. They said there were a number of factors that could stoke inflation that people need to be mindful of, and that pay rises could be one of those areas that could be of detriment.
Right. Right, we're gonna go back to fucking school because this is the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a wage price spiral. It's literally shit be expensive. Energy is expensive because Russia. Food is expensive because the grain's fucked and the energy's fucked and the climate's fucked. Everything else is expensive because China's not making enough fucking semiconductors, and even if they could, the supply chains have taken it up the ass. That's why shit is expensive. I beg you to stop being so moronic. But then, of course, the point is for you to be moronic. That's
I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, what happened with France? How much did their energy bills go up by on average? It's something like 2%, wasn't it? 4% compared to the insane percentage that it is in this country. I don't even lost fucking track of what it is right now.
But the reason for that is that, like, in France, they'll go out and burn a bunch of cars if you fuck with them.
Yes, and there are lessons to be drawn from that.
British people are like fucking cowards. Do you know what I mean? As much as they might fucking rattle on about the French always surrendering and shit, like next to the fucking glorious population of France, your average Brit is a fucking massive pussy.
They are actually right about the French always surrender. It's just that they're always talking about the French police. So Johnson's spokesperson also admitted that his pledge of a high-wage economy remained more of an objective given the short to
it's
medium
an idea,
term.
Really. He's more of an ideas guy.
Just a vibe. Given the short to medium term inflationary pressures, they said, and this is fucking beautiful, the government needs to adapt to some of the global challenges we're seeing caused by exiting a pandemic and war in Europe. But that does not change our ambition.
But
yeah.
It's the cheat code for getting the British public to literally let you get away with like shitting directly into their mouths, is to like fucking imply that it's somehow Blitz spirit. Do you know what I mean?
Well, people
have to like just buckle down and, like, you know what I mean, and live off like fucking bird shit and rainwater.
Well,
because that's what they would have had to do, like under the Nazis. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want Hitler to win again, do you?
And that is just the economic reality of where we find ourselves at the moment.
Also, did you know that Hitler was the head of the National Socialist Party?
Yeah, I mean, these are things that you can only say if you're like the Tories. You're just playing politics on easy mode.
Yeah,
playing politics with people's lives on easy mode.
Yeah. Speaking, hang on. Hashtag General Strike Now is trending now in the UK. Excellent. This is progressing quite well. I will keep you updated. I've got a tweet from Seb Payne.
Oh, fuck you, briefcase.
The sentient briefcase. Lifting the bankers' bonuses cap is an obvious thing to do. It costs the government nothing, and the city needs all the help it can get after Brexit. Some folks will play class warfare, but the government urgently needs to take some pro-business action.
That's doing class warfare, you prick! You fucking bespectacled cunt! What the fuck? This same guy was saying that we can't give striking workers pay rises. Like, the same fucking breath.
Yeah, that the central bank was right to say that people should moderate their wages.
What I will say about Seb Payne, though, is like, congratulations on his puby beard that he's managed to grow.
Does he have a little pube face now? Oh,
he does.
Who's little pube face? Who's little pube face?
This is an intent to remove the cap on bankers' bonuses. Downing Street's asked ministers to ease restrictions on city bosses' pay to show overseas companies the benefits of Brexit. And basically this is just a plan for deregulatory measures to reduce the overall burden on business and attract more firms to the UK.
It's a holdover from the European Union. There were some rules that you couldn't pay bonuses more than like double the stated salary. So what all companies did was just like pay massive fuck off salaries and then just double it up as a bonus. So that's how that worked. But now they just even want to get rid of that fig leaf because there was no cap on the salary. So you could just pay bankers whatever the fuck they wanted as a salary and then just double it and still technically be within the rules.
Yeah, but then people could point at you and go, look how much money the fucking CEO earns or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now no longer. Now the CEO can earn £10 a year, but also somehow receive like a fucking £50 million bonus or whatever.
receive £10 a year and a series of glowing articles in the fucking Times about what a progressive hero the guy is.
Yeah, that's it. Look how fucking well balanced the pay structure is in this workplace.
Yeah. Look at how many houses his parents bought him.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's it. That's where we are now. We'll see how things go. But Labour's doing fuck all for it. The Tories are very obviously doing fuck all for it. And the only people that are really doing anything to foster any positive change is the workers and the unions. So
exactly the thing we like to
natural order. Yeah, natural order at work, really. But that's obviously this is all rail led. Rob, what's going on with the buses? Hello, it's David in the edit. We had a technical fuck-up of fairly epic proportions at this point in the recording, in which James just completely lost the ability to record anything and pretty much lost everything that you've just heard, and we only just managed to recover it. For that reason, James will not be featuring on the rest of this episode. We do intend to finally have James back for a full episode at some point very soon. But otherwise, here's the rest of the four of us talking about what's going on the buses.
Yeah, so this is something I've wanted to do for a while for a couple of reasons. First, because I just genuinely think it's interesting. The second is a bit more personal. My fiance's dad used to just be able to walk down to the pub, have a couple of pints, and then take the bus back up. And then all of a sudden, the fucking bus stopped going, and it's really interfered with his life. And he's an 83-year-old man who now has to walk up a steep hill, which isn't as easy for him. So it's genuinely like a personal pain in the ass. And the third is, of course, because we are recording on the day where the RMT strikes have started. So I'm assuming that at least some of our audience has been stuck in the bus today. And if you're wondering why it is as shit as it is, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So, yeah, that's it.
It's supposed to be shit, and therefore you should just deal with it.
It wasn't shit. Once upon a time, it wasn't shit, and then Margaret Thatcher got involved. That's a very good
well. Once upon a time, it wasn't shit for the passengers, but it was shit for the shareholders. So
shit for them in the sense that they didn't really exist.
Yeah, technically, a functional bus service is like an abortion for shareholders, and who wants that on their conscience?
Yeah, sometimes it is harder on the shareholder.
No pleasure in reporting this.
Yeah, life begins at initial public offering, as I think the saying goes.
Should we move past this and heal?
Anyway, before I start talking, couple of credits too, because credit where credit is due. The first is to Philip Alston Bassam Kawaja. I apologize for mispronunciation. And Rebecca Riddell. They are the authors of the quite good Public Transport Private Profit Report from the NYU School of Law Center for Human Rights and Global Justice, as well as the Campaign for Better Transport, as well as my friends at the National Audit Office for once again coming up with more good shit to read.
Yeah, big ups from your number one fan, Rob here.
Yeah, exactly. This is the kind of stuff that you know, but it's kind of like when you start looking into it, you understand how critical it is. Like, buses are incredibly important. They are by far the majority of all public transport taken in the UK. On average, there's about 4.5 billion trips in the UK every year, which for every single man, woman, and child living in the UK, that's about 70 each. And some of us, of course, don't take any. Some of us take loads more. But the people who take them the most are the people you would maybe suspect. It's young people, old people, and poor people. Exactly, people the Tory party hates. So that's why I'm quite sure that's some of why.
With the exception of like the retired and old people, and hence the bus, the pensioner bus pass.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, like I was just talking about my fiance's dad, like my father-in-law, he's still getting fucked over with this, and he has the bus pass. Buses are incredibly important. They provide access to work, access to school, access to supermarkets, high streets, your friends, pretty much everything. They are the literal lifelines for like any community, and especially for those further away from train stations or big road networks or anything. So They really are incredibly important. And also, if you're looking towards the future, they're really good for climate change. If you add one bus service to any decent-sized road, it pretty much doubles the number of people that one single road can carry. And a fully loaded double-decker, like you'd get in London, it takes up to 75 cars off the road. And, you know, that's obviously incredibly important. And
most importantly, you get to pretend that you're driving the bus.
Exactly, when you're on the top floor in front of the big window, and that's fucking cool wherever you are. So public transport should be a right, like it shouldn't be a pay-for privilege, shouldn't be you have access to a bus, you should just have right to public transport. And yet, as we know, they're utterly fucking terrible. Bus service in the UK is maybe worse than train service, and that's really fucking saying something.
And it is really funny, because if we are talking about a world where we need to start not just electrifying cars, but taking cars off the road, you do need sort of like an interwoven web of different forms of public transport that you can effectively...
Well, that's why we've got Uber, baby.
Yeah. So you can effectively get from point A to B to C to D. So, because a bus to the train station, then the train station, or a walk to a bus to a train station to a walk to work or whatever, or a cycle to work or what have you, is pretty typical for someone who works in London, but very much not typical for anyone else
and it's
really outside of major cities.
And it's pretty basic. Like, I mean, I live in Switzerland, and like, public transport is very good and integrated, and it works, and there's seats, and the buses are clean, and the drivers are paid. Like, it's really not that fucking hard to do. Unlike UK bus services, which through a combination of underfunded councils and, of course, privatisation and, of course, Margaret Thatcher, are fucking shit. And what we're seeing at the moment is that fees are climbing incredibly quickly, so demand is slowing at a time when energy prices are rising and the climate's getting worse. So it's like the worst possible combination, because it just means that more bus companies and more like bus provision is going down the shitter combined. Let me quote a little bit from the Public Transport Private Profit Report. Some would argue that it doesn't matter who runs the system, whether it's public or private, so long as the actual service works for passengers. This report finds that the very act of running a bus company for profit in a deregulated system introduces distorting commercial incentives that are in direct opposition to providing a better bus service. The British government has put its faith in the private market, but the market, by its very nature, cannot deliver. So, the takeaway, as with most of this podcast, is nationalise more. This shit will never work in private hands.
You obviously can't see it, but I'm doing Home Alone face. I'm so shocked.
Don't understand. That's impossible.
Yeah, it's weird how you introduce a market into something that would otherwise be a natural monopoly. It just doesn't miraculously make things better, scare quotes.
I mean, the Tories did put out last year, which is another reason why I talk about this issue. They introduced the Bus Back Better report, which I've read.
Read another catchphrase, you cunts.
Yeah.
Remember when the slogans made sense?
No. I hope whoever's responsible for Bus Back Better printed that entire report out, rolled it up, and tried to shove it up their own piss pipe.
Inquiring minds would like to know. If you're one of the authors and you're sitting on the blog, please DM Jamie. Anyway,
if you're a member of the NAO and you're listening to this, you should absolutely DM Rob, though.
Yeah.
Come on the pod.
Unironically.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, our story begins, as most of these types of stories do tend to do, with Margaret fucking Thatcher, because almost uniquely among all wealthy nations, the UK has adopted an extreme form of privatisation of its bus service in the 1980s, and that was directly linked to the Thatcherite spirit of deregulation, let's put it that way. Just as a brief intro...
See, there are some forms of extremism that are apparently good and acceptable, and that we should carry on doing, and others that for some reason we shouldn't be.
Yeah. Anyway, very briefly, in the before 1985, bus services were essentially regulated locally, and monopoly licenses were given to operators who ran the routes with defined fares, defined stopping points, defined timetables, all of that. Many of them were either owned outright by cities or councils or transport authorities, or they were massively subsidized and de facto public. In all major urban areas, local public transport authorities ran them, lots of local councils ran some, and long distance connecting bus services as well as rural stuff was run by in England and Wales by the National Bus Company, and in Scotland by the Scottish Bus Group. These were just basically, I remember reading that like the National Bus Company, the one in England and Wales, had like 9,000 buses at its peak. They were big, like they were big operators, and they were just owned by the state. So it did happen. It was there.
Bring back central planning.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, on that point, like, it is funny how, and this kind of speaks to sort of the broader conflicts that sort of capitalism probably has, is that when you talk about economies of scale, that's something that a private business wants to take advantage of. But as soon as you start trying to do things like that as a state, for some reason, a lot of people at the Adam Smith Institute get very mad at you.
In between being sent to the Nonsense conference, of course. However,
Rip King Josh.
However, the advent of the car post World War II, of course, changed things massively. Bus use halves between 1960 and 1980, and the financial settlement and the way the administration works as it was defined before doesn't really work anymore. Costs and fares are rising, incomes are slowing down, which means there needs to be more public subsidy put into the thing. And of course, that means that when Margaret Thatcher comes along with her government and her hatred of all things public subsidy, that means the hatchet has to go into the forehead.
I mean, it is really fucking stupid, though, when we think about how British Rail is, as in, like, the businesses that run the rails in Britain rather than actual British Rail, is one of the most heavily subsidised in Europe. It's just that money doesn't get
worst fucking service.
Yeah, for the worst fucking return on investment, which again is a thing you would think that people who are pro-business would want a good thing of.
Well, I mean, very similar things are about to happen to bus services in the United Kingdom. So this is first laid out in a 1984 white paper written by the Thatcher government. Let me quote a little line from you. "There is good evidence that services could be improved and costs reduced if we went about it in a different way. Without the dead hand of restrictive regulation, fares could be reduced now on many bus routes and operators would still make a profit." Very classic neoliberal capitalism. It's the state is a busybody that needs to get out of the way and just provide like a stable framework so that private operators can compete for all the wonderful customers that are out there. So in 1985, we get the big deregulatory Big Bang, which is known as the 1985 Transport Act. It does two key bits. It deregulates a lot of the old stuff that kept bus companies and the stuff that wasn't public first in place, and it privatized everything that was public. These two obviously went very well together because fucking Margaret Thatcher. Essentially, in the before time, you had a licensing system. Essentially, if you lived in Nottingham or Doncaster or whatever, the local council or the local transport authority would give 1 or 2 or 3 licenses to a series of companies, and they just had to obey by the rules as set out. And then, then maybe they turn a profit, maybe they wouldn't, maybe public, but it was a licensed system. Essentially, all the licensing, apart from London, which is a separate story, disappears. And essentially what happens instead is now anybody who wants one, Big Dave can open Big Dave's bus company. They just have to tell the local authority with a window of like 2 months that they're going to do that and that these are the routes they're planning on running. It also
set up my own like rogue maverick bus company just to take people to rural outlets.
Yeah, you could. So far as I understand, you still can. You could do that. Like, you probably lose money, but you can do that. And it also removed the power of local authorities.
You could steal the bus and the petrol and the drivers and like run it for free.
Yeah, this podcast endorses the cool crime of bus driver kidnapping.
I swear there was a guy in the US who stole a bus, or maybe it was like a subway or something, and just took it and just ran the routes.
Oh yeah,
we need more heroes like that.
Furthermore, because this is deregulatory, it removes local council authority from coordinating bus transport in the area. So whereas before the coordinating framework used to be set by the council, they said, these are the number of lines they go here and there. This is the X and Y frequency, so they meet each other at convenient points, and that it would work for people.
And we replaced that with do whatever.
We replaced that with the invisible hand of the free market, which just essentially groped its way up everybody's knickers over time. So now any bus company can register any service it chooses on any given route, as long as it registers with about 2 months in advance. So what happens is popular routes with real traffic on them would get massively oversubscribed and would get hundreds of buses, while not popular ones with less traffic on them would have to be subsidized by the councils, who were still allowed to put them out to tender for social need, but they would have to reimburse the privatized bus companies for the losses incurred. So this is where a massive hole in council budgets open up, is they keep having to subsidize unpopular or low destiny routes, I don't know, from your town square to a small village. There's not a lot of people going there, so that's subsidized, and this is where part of the problem comes from.
Yeah, this is one of a fucking prime example of the problems are bad, but the causes are very, very good. We have a problem, a crisis of availability in rural areas, and the cause of that is all of those routes just not being economically viable for a profit-seeking company. So
they don't make money, so why should they be there? Fuck you.
Oh, well, it turns out it's because it's for the public good.
Yeah, what if beaching, but you're not actually allowed to fucking do full closures? And you just need to take it on the fucking chin for these things to exist, but the private fucking sector still gets a nice big slice of the pie at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that happens is, like I said, is a lot of centralized control that councils and transport authorities used to have is lost, because private bus companies are now responsible for setting the timetables, opening new routes or closing them as the case may be, and also even placing where the bus stops are. In this period, it was the bus company that determined where the bus stop was, and they didn't have to talk to the council about it. They could just move shit around if they wanted to. And also in the...
Is it the same? Is it similar with... I don't know if it's similar with rail contracts at least, but the idea of just being able to change the fucking timetable at will with no council oversight, just
God. I think
removal of any democratic accountability.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it works for rail timetables, but obviously they need to be kind of centrally organised, because you don't just have that rail operator on that line. You're going to have freight operators and stuff running too.
That's true.
So that does need to be centrally agreed, whereas it's buses, so it's roads. So do what you fucking like.
Could just be like the episode of Futurama where the mayor sends in more trains. So who can say if that or not?
So, and also, in this new package of legislation, in the criteria for people to register themselves as a private bus company, there's literally no reference to public demand, existing services, and other bus companies, as well as local authorities, were not allowed to object if one private bus company decided to change things. So if you're Doncaster and all of a sudden your market is privatized, and the precursor to Stagecoach says, yeah, we're just not going to run any buses on Sunday anymore, or we're going to stop running them at 5, or whatever they decide, or literally we're moving the bus stop, you're no longer allowed to object to any of this.
Cool.
So that's the deregulatory side. The other side, of course, is the privatization bit, which means that the various bits of publicly owned or previously mostly subsidized bus companies should be privatized, because capitalism, they would be better managed and have more access to private capital. Read, we don't have to pay for this shit anymore through the government budget. They won't be on the government books anymore. So this is the idea. And if you remember from when we talked about the first time, I apologize, Jamie, for when we talked about the gas markets for the first time, they do the same thing. This is essentially a very well-developed market. You know, there's a lot of customers, there's a lot of buses, there's a lot of infrastructure, there's a lot of bus stops, all that stuff. And now that the market is fully developed and the state has put in billions and billions of pounds to do it, they chuck the whole thing over the fence for like a couple quid to the private sector so that the private sector can then go ahead and fuck it up and extract rents. Very similar processes about to happen.
And in the process doing what they always do in pursuit of profit, drive down working conditions, wages, and as with all public services that this happens in, the quality of the actual service itself.
Yes, 100%. So all the subsidiaries, because the national bus company used to have like lots of local subsidiaries, they were all hacked apart and then sold into 72 small pieces to the private sector, which makes the government at the time a cool £89 million after all debts and privatization costs were paid off. So I think you can agree, that's really worth it. 89 whole million pounds.
I gave all my worldly possessions to this guy, and he gave me these really cool beans.
We love magic beans.
David, in case you were wondering, the Scottish Public Bus Agencies also dissolved in 1988, and it was split up into 10 new companies. So all of a sudden, instead of like a couple recognizable ones, there's like more than 100 running around if you add everything together. And also, furthermore, because of this is all deregulatory, councils also get the power as well as strong incentives to sell their local publicly owned bus companies. And in the end, by 1997, only 7% of all bus companies remain in the hands of a council. 93% is all sold off. And naturally, what happens because of the efficiency in the private market over time is that these 92 smaller companies are amalgamated and get sold off, and then that's how you end up with Stagecoach and like 4 others.
Or ants.
Oh no, a tendency of capital to accumulate? No! Shit! Not again!
Specifically, London is a little bit different. If you're wondering where Transport for London partly comes from, that's due to its scale, and essentially you need public transport in a city the size of London. You can't do without it. Yeah. London buses are essentially hacked up into 12 separate parts, but they were still much more in arm's length, but still under the control of the Greater London Council at the time, so under Ken Livingstone. And after consultation to fully privatize the whole thing and therefore get rid of the GLC control, that fails. And this whole project sort of sputters to a halt when Labour takes over with Blair, and it remains at least controlled much more by TfL, which evolves over time. However, the 12 business units inside London bus companies, they are still private. They're just like TfL has its thumb on the scale much more than anywhere else in the country. And that's why London buses, quote unquote, work much better. It's because they're still private, but it's because there's a council sitting on top of them saying, no, you can't do that. And yes, you must run these routes here and there. That's why that happens.
So there's a little bit of adult supervision as adult as some Labour councils.
Exactly. Yeah. So surprisingly, the results of the 1985 reforms are not just a dramatic fall in the number of unprofitable routes, but also a mega jump in the routes on the lines that do make money, with buses essentially just like coming and going all the time because there's passengers to pick them up. And this like duplicate bus system is only resolved with additional regulation in 1993. But you do also get something that still went on, I think even last decade, very intense competition between now private operators for the handful of really profitable routes. And these are essentially known as the bus wars, which is amazing.
Not as cool as it sounds, I presume.
So to give you an example, one of the bus companies running in Cardiff was operating a very popular route at a massive loss, simply so it could drive its new competitor out of business. And once the competitor went out of business, the cheap tickets were also suddenly gone.
God, I love capitalism.
Yeah.
And on the 192 Manchester to Stockport line, UK North and Stagecoach essentially went to war, and according to the BBC, both bus companies have increased the number of buses on the route, and passengers say the volume of bus vehicles has made boarding the buses dangerous. So they
literally sending in more buses.
yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, you were right. This isn't really as exciting as it sounds. I thought this was maybe going to be something like the ice cream walls type stuff.
That's exactly what I thought of, actually.
Yeah. But no, alas, unfortunately not.
So essentially what you get is a total dissolution of a unified and comprehensible and controlled social system, because there is no private incentive. If you have 82 bus companies competing, or slowly over time like 5 or 8, they have no incentive to create a unified and comprehensible system. And if you ever are sitting there at your bus stop or at the train station while you're waiting 45 minutes for a bus, or why your bus service isn't linked up to when the train arrives, or why there's no normal human links into your town or village on a Sunday, this is why. This 1985 bill is the start of all that fucking shit, essentially. But it wasn't supposed to be this way. In the report that I cited before, Public Service Private Profit, they have a wonderful sort of compare and contrast between the 1984 white paper and what is then written in the Bus Back Better strategy paper in 2021. So I'll just read you a few. 1984 white paper. Competition will also bring continuing pressure to keep costs down. 2021. Average bus fares have increased by 403% since 1987.
Oh boy, how wages done in that time? Oh no, this graph looks very sad.
1984. If one operator fails to provide a service that is wanted, another will step up. 2021. Many communities have lost their daily bus service altogether. Others only have service for a few hours a day. Again, that's because it's not profitable for bus companies to do it. They want to squeeze as many passengers in to fill the bus, and if that means you have to wait for 3 hours until that bus is full for its trip, that's what they're going to make you do. 1984. Transfer to the private sector removes any potential future liability from the taxpayer to provide capital or make good losses in the busing sector. Guess what happens? 2021. Few services could now survive without emergency state support. If we are not to entirely abandon communities, services cannot be planned on a purely commercial basis.
So some kind of central plan.
Yes, some kind of centralized thing. And essentially from a different report, but outside TfL in London, the government, as it stands now, pays about $2 billion a year through like 6 or 7 differently named funds. In bus subsidies anyway. So it's costing us like a shit ton of money to just run really fucking shitty services.
To do the same thing as we did with rail. Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
It is really cool how I looked through how one specific aspect of the neoliberalisation of a public utility in the UK, public good, it's just such a great example of how that entire process has worked throughout the entire country, whether that be BT, gas, water, the mail, like fucking Royal Mail itself, just...
Yeah.
Is any of these stories going to be particularly different? I very much doubt it.
I mean, they'll be different in the particulars, which is why I do find the bus thing interesting. But the broad strokes are all the same. It's because you're trying to create a market where there should be one, because these are necessary underpinnings for a society to function. And again, just to hammer home the point, this is again from the report. South Yorkshire provides a useful case study. Prior to deregulation, the Yorkshire County Council subsidised bus fares, allowing passengers to travel at a low cost almost 24 hours a day. In 2020, a review found that the service has since become unreliable, buses are not integrated with other forms of transport, information is scarce, fares have consistently risen above inflation, and passengers must pay a premium for a ticket that doesn't restrict them to a particular operator. In the 5 years following deregulation, passengers' numbers fell 50%. So none of it worked.
How much did profits go up?
Yeah. Well, massively, of course. And the other thing, I mean, that's the corollary to the side of all this is, as the might of the car lobby grows and cars being incredibly important to like the Tories in general as sort of like almost like a psychic object, like car owners are incredibly important to the Tory party, and therefore car owners get preference. It's like the shit that we still haven't raised fuel duties in 11 years. They have been frozen for 11 fucking years. Not everything else, though. Fuel duties have, for personal use. That's because cars and car owners are more important than anything public, because the cars are, by their very nature,
you've got to lock down that fucking Jeremy Clarkson vote, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. So by 1997, most of the 82 new companies in the market have been squeezed out, and Arriva, First Group, and Stagecoach control almost half of the marketplace. And, surprisingly, they don't actually compete. This is according to a Parliament research paper read on the sign. There are a number of reasons why public authorities take issue with the deregulated systems. The 5 big operators, Arriva, First, Go Ahead, National Express, and Stagecoach, effectively run monopolies in many areas. Even where 2 or more of the big 5 operate in the same area, this has not always, or even often, led to streamlined services and cheaper fares. That's because capital at its end stage doesn't want competition, it wants a monopoly to fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, having competition is expensive, and it is better to either run your competitor out of business or to just acquire them if you're fucking, like, in the tech sector or whatever, or indeed any other sector, which is, like, while we had that bus company that kept ticket prices low just until the other guy ran out of
Yeah, and then they put the tickets up and squeezed the now monopolized population for all they were.
Corner the market and raise the price. It's fucking that literally like market economics 101.
Yeah, it's just disruption.
Yeah.
And I mean, it gets worse because according to the NAO, effectively private bus companies, and the big 5 in particular, they are not actually legally accountable to the Department of Transport, even if it wanted to do anything, or local authorities, and they are not formally accountable, fantastically, for the reliability or punctuality of bus services. So you can't sue them. You have no legal recourse if they decide to fuck you and your service.
This is just the fucking MOD and the recruitment thing again, isn't it?
Yeah. So essentially between 2000 and now, there's a relentless squeeze on all things public. And because there's still a statute on the books that says if the bus routes are incredibly unprofitable but necessary for social need, like running a bus from the centre of Doncaster to a small village somewhere, the local authorities are still on the hook for paying for that. But, of course, what then happens is George Osborne and austerity. And since they, and the Lib Dems, of course, let's not forget those little shits, implemented austerity, local funding for buses has fallen by 50%. So it was already bad, but the stuff that you could still get, like what I think has happened, my father-in-law being able to get a bus back from the pub too close to his house, got cut in half, and the timetables are now no longer make any fucking sense. And that's because councils could literally no longer afford to do it. In Wales, for example, the cuts over about 6 or 8 years were almost 40% of the bus budget. So once that goes, the service goes. And the people who get hit are not the Jeremy Clarkson fucking car drivers. They're the young, the poor elderly, and the people of the lowest income, 75% of whom make their trips with the bus, and those without access to private cars. So the people who don't vote Tory anyway, and on the other hand, the people who do vote Tory and who the Tories care about, the people with capital, they're not the people who are on public transport. And if they do, they take first-class train trips, which is still sort of barely functional. And in the austerity...
Also, we're on this little bit, like, I'm just going to have a little piss and moan about the super aggressive policies of free bus travel for the under 21s or whatever shit like that. All they're doing is fucking subsidising private companies to do this.
Yes.
Like, Private companies are still making profit off these fucking apparently progressive policies. There's no progressive policies around fucking public transport that don't begin with nationalise the fucking thing. Anyway, sorry, I just had to have a moan about that when we were on the topic because it fucking does my tits in.
Yeah. Sorry, give me a second. Also, briefly and hilariously, I think under David Cameron, there was a genuine hope that Uber would resolve the situation and just have, the magic of
a wizard will fix
everything.
Yeah, this problem we've got. Some solution in the future will come and fix it. I mean, any fucking problem that a neoliberal government in this country has faced, they have like a genuine crisis. They have said will be fixed by some miraculous technology in the future.
Yeah.
Whether it was the fucking Brexit borders issue or and the like AI-driven fucking vehicle recognition or whatever the fuck. Or, Uber will fix the transport cost crisis. Absolutely.
Oh, but get ready because the bus back strategy.
David Cameron, all right. Remember when evil had banality.
Right. No, sorry. Yeah. And Alistair, like you were talking about before, it has been absolutely terrible for bus drivers and other employees of these companies. Over time, they've had significantly lower safety, worse recruitment, low retention, low pay, everything. And that's because these are systemic problems caused by a near-monopoly sector that seeks to exploit its labor rather than properly pay it. In the last couple of years, and we've talked about it before on the podcast actually, fire and rehire has been a great hit for all privatized bus companies. They've all been fucking at it. And just to give you, this is a quote from a bus driver the Public Transport Private Profit Report talks to. I'll just quote him directly, or her. We didn't think it was safe. It's impossible to keep alert for that amount of time. When you've got all these passengers on, your mind starts shutting down. You're mentally tired. It was all about cutting the cost down to the absolute minimum. You end up with a feeling of absolute hopelessness. You couldn't possibly keep the service up. Despair, that's the word. I felt sorry. I really felt sorry for the travelling public. This is not the bus driver's fault. Don't be a shit to the bus driver because he's being extorted as much as you are, and he's being, and they should go on strike as well. I hope the first part of the episode was okay.
But that's just what happens when you're a service worker. You're just there to absorb fucking abuse, aren't you?
You are grist to the mill.
Yeah, it's the first directive of the service worker is take abuse from the worst cunts in the fucking country.
I think actually that's the second. The first directive is none shall enter the forbidden zone.
And essentially, on the other hand,
don't
what
make
keeps
me
happening
tap this
is is between the 1985 deregulation rules and now, every single government, I do mean all of them, Thatcher, Major, Blair, Brown, Cameron. Everybody, what they all do is they put these half-hearted regulations and sort of half fixes in and increasing gobs of public money that keeps alive a fundamentally fucked sector. Not because buses are bad or bus drivers are bad, it's because they let the private sector do what it does, because they're all fallen in the same neoliberal trap, which is we can't do it, we can only be the manager leasing out the contract, that we are the letting agent of the UK. That's the role, and therefore it doesn't fucking work. It's madness.
Oh my
We've
God.
been doing this.
The government being described as the estate agent of the country is just sublime. Oh my God.
I mean, if you think about it, it's madness. If you think about just the pure business imperative of fucking Stagecoach or Arriva or whoever, you cannot incentivize Stagecoach on the long term to stay where it doesn't want to stay, where it doesn't see a return, in rural areas, in poor areas, in low density areas, anywhere where they can't guarantee that all the butts will be in seats and the route will make money. It doesn't work. Even if they did make a return, it doesn't reinvest. It just fucks off to whoever owned the company. For example, in between 2003 and 2013, the private bus companies paid almost £2.8 billion in dividends to themselves and their shareholders. And that's nearly £3 billion that didn't go into updating the fleet, getting the necessary but unprofitable routes going. It just sucks the money out of the economy and into the hands of a few people, and a lot of them offshore, and increasingly foreign ownership. More and more British bus companies are not owned in Britain. The money just vanishes offshore, and all you get in return for it is more public subsidies going to a hole that does absolutely fucking nothing for you. And then, of course, on top of that, we got Corona, where the government decided to keep bus companies, not the services, but the companies alive, and ended up paying up to 90% of all bus company revenue in 2020 without any of the benefits. We didn't say, if we're paying you 90% of all the revenue you have, we want shares, we want control, we demand that you actually work with councils to put the bus services where they need it. We demand that you reinvest in your bus services.
Could you imagine if a left-wing government had actually been in charge of everything during COVID, and through that lens had managed to privatize a whole bunch of national industries?
Tell you what, no, I can't imagine that, but what I can imagine is the immediate coup that followed it.
Yeah, but that 2 weeks of free public transport would have been incredible.
Would have been fucking glorious.
Yeah, I know. Well, funnily enough, there are some little projects that are going on and starting to pick up steam finally on actually nationalising some local services. I know Glasgow has had a kind of long-standing plan to nationalise or renationalise or relocalise, I suppose, the bus service and bring it back under council control. But I'm still waiting to see anything happen with that, because of course the SNP are involved, and anything remotely good takes a long fucking time if the SNP are involved.
Well, I mean, the sort of kind of good news, David, is that, again, my life is very exciting. So I read the Bus Back Better strategy cover to cover, and that is, like, legally speaking, like regulatorily speaking, that is now once again something that is possible to do. It's just not likely. It's very, very difficult, and also it means a lot of upfront costs for councils that don't have money.
Some of the only places you might see this happen are Glasgow, because of the amount of what I know has gone into that one already, and maybe Manchester, I think. Greater Manchester.
Manchester is where they're doing it under that weak-willed, spineless coward Andy Burnham. But that's because Manchester's got a huge fuck-off budget, and they can actually afford to do this stuff. If you're Doncaster, you probably can't.
You're fucked if you're a little council, or God help you if you're fucking rural.
Yeah. Let me read you a little bit from the... this is Boris writing the introduction to the Bus Back Better strategy. Some people ask what levelling up means in practice and what difference it will really make to people's lives. This is part of what it means.
Usually you get another talent point, you get a few more stats as well, and sometimes you learn a few new ranks of spells.
As we build back from the pandemic, better buses will be one of our major acts of levelling up. Now, see if you can spot the contradiction in Chapter 1. The bus sector includes many examples of success and innovation. Despite years of decline, the quantity of bus services in many places remains quite good, at least during the working day. But, because buses have been neglected, their future is fragile and there remains substantial scope for improvement. So the bus sector is wonderful, successful and innovative, but at the same time it is weak and fragile, and there is significant room for improvement.
Oh, hang on, I've heard that before.
Are we doing fascist tropes about buses?
Yeah, is it rail workers?
Yes.
Because I've heard that they're critical to society, but yet also have no actual job or skill and can be immediately replaced.
Yeah. Let agency workers drive the trains. If nothing else, it'll be bleakly funny.
Do you know what? Actually, I saw someone posted a screenshot from some kind of like ticket logging software from some rail line, and like it was like pages and pages of trains being routed to the wrong lines because of signal because of idiots being behind the signals. It's great.
Excellent. Tell you what, if nothing else, agency staff will keep "well, there's your problem" in business for years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, you need to get the agency staff in, though, because if you don't, then all the trains get cancelled, and it's just like Sarajevo.
Oh, that was such a fucking banger, I forgot about that.
I mean, the whole report, if you read it, and, you won't, but I did, the whole report is incredibly good at denying blame or pointing fingers or saying this is what happened and who made the decisions. It's just stuff happened. It's like the weather. Like, there's nobody in control. Let me read a little bit. Since 1986, almost uniquely in the developed world, buses in Britain, brackets outside London, have been organised on a predominantly commercial basis, with operators themselves deciding where to run and what to change. Who did this? Why did they do it? It was just, everybody just decided to get up one day and get nutty with it.
Yeah, buses and bus stops, ever since we dug them out of the ground from that ancient civilization, they've just been like this, and there's no way to change it because we fundamentally don't understand the technology behind them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We don't know how to work out the ley lines anymore, and that's the problem. So it was called British Leyland.
Hey. Do you know? I'm just sat here thinking that, like, imagine if Prometheus had been about like those fucking ancient engineers that like would instead of like chasing people around and like spraying fucking like black jizz everywhere, they were actually running bus companies. It would have been a much better film, I think.
I thought you meant the like ancient mythic Prometheus.
There wasn't any black
Prometheus
jizz in
stole
that story.
technology for buses from the gods and is destined to be chased by an eagle for the rest of his life.
What were you about to say there, David?
No, it just says there wasn't any black jizz in that ancient fucking Greek tale, was there?
No. I thought you were going to argue about my fucking like interpretation of Ridley Scott's magnum opus. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't dare. At least not in this episode. I'd keep that for a cultural committee.
Exactly, because this one is about buses. What they're doing with the bus back better strategy, and see if you've heard this before.
Stop saying that, man.
They're devolving responsibility to improve bus services to local transit authorities to develop plans in what are known as enhanced partnerships with private bus companies. And in the report, it's made quite clear that most of them should be expected to stick with a partnership between the public and the private sector, something that I think we can all agree has just given us the best results in the last 4 decades.
If you think about, right, a tandem bicycle.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Shut the fuck up.
I think the only thing universally agreed on about like these days is that the function of government is like, I don't know, some Chuckle Brothers shit.
I mean, frankly, the Chuckle Brothers get a lot more done.
Yeah.
Or at least a lot more done that isn't pointedly evil and cynical.
That we know of.
And also, if you're living in rural areas and you think, well, what does this strategy mean for me? Let me quote again. New forms of provision, such as demand-responsive travel in smaller vehicles, is part of the solution.
Also Uber.
Yes.
Also Uber.
Uber and taxis. That thing we didn't have before. That's new.
I mean, even Uber, which is, touts itself as the killer of the taxi, essentially, is really fucking it's extraordinarily expensive compared to even expensive private bus routes in the UK. It's fucking insane.
And also,
and it'll only get more expensive once they kill all the taxis. Assuming they do. I don't want to go on record as saying that, like, you know what I mean. What if taxis, but driven by even more sex offenders, is like a guaranteed like winner of a fucking business model? Because I'm not so sure.
Have you considered just making your business model owning the buses and also a bunch of the taxis like they have here on the west coast of Scotland?
But Uber has the same fucking problem. Uber is not profitable in low density rural areas. Uber makes its money by constantly having
small rides. It's not even profitable in high density areas.
See, the real money is like if you start an agency that rents out sex offenders, and then you get money from Uber, taxis, and bus drivers.
Yeah, your portfolio is just a bunch of mugshots.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're asking, well, that was launched last year, how's it going this year? Well, I read a bit from the Better Transport group. So the good news is that all 79 local transport authorities have delivered like upgrade plans to the central government saying this is what we want to do and this is the money that we need. The bad news is that the total funding request from all authorities came to just over 7 billion, even while the funding available was slashed to 1.1 billion in the last spending review.
1 in 7 buses will be up to spec.
Yeah. Or not. It could be less because like it's very possible.
Obviously.
It's very possible that due to numbers fuckstein that they took a lot of the money that was earmarked for this strategy and then actually used it to pay 90% of the revenues in 2020. So there might not be even as much money as that. And then, of course, the question becomes, if you're the central government, if you're the Department of Transport, how do you decide who gets the money? And my guess is they're going to give it to Tory areas or like marginal Tory seats.
Well, that's what they have been doing.
That's what they have been doing.
Said, there was a report the other day where it was like, if you live in a Tory local council or constituency, you're like £60 a head better off.
Yeah.
So.
Just handbucket it.
This strategy, right, it continues just the completely busted model from 1985. It doesn't fundamentally change it. It's just more money to the private sector, more cooperation, more targets, more partnerships, all of which, in successive governments, we've tried again since the fucking 37 years we've done it. It doesn't work because the partnerships, quote unquote...
It's just obfuscation, all of it. All of these strategies and plans and fucking tedious catchphrases are all just running cover for a system that everyone knows doesn't deliver what it is ostensibly meant to deliver, which is getting people around when what the actual goal is to just funnel public money to private hands, which is what the entirety of the privatization of every fucking sector in this country has ever been, over the world has ever been about.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing just doubles down on private companies not doing what they've been consistently doing for 37 years in the bus sector, which is fuck you over and get more money out of you, because that's the function of capitalism. It doesn't give a shit about whether or not you need to get to your village from Doncaster. It really fucking doesn't. In this whole paper, right, it provides the option, but it's only an option, but not a commitment for new publicly or locally owned bus companies. It doesn't remove legal barriers that are really high at the moment that would allow local authorities to regulate private bus companies in their area. And there's no obligation, no legal obligation for local authorities to run even like a bare bone public service anymore. Like, it's just all left up to these insane enhanced partnerships that simply won't work. Now, like, look, there's plenty of wrong fucking with Transport for London, and probably a whole different episode. But I will say, as a model, if you must have a public-private partnership, their services are integrated. There's control on the fares. There's control on the routes, the frequency of the buses. There's, if the trains arrive, there's a bus waiting for you. All that stuff. There's the Oyster card. It's a piece of shit and it's expensive, but one ticket pays for everything. And they're buying more new green vehicles. And that's still with a private provider in the middle. Just one that's under the thumb of a publicly accountable authority. It's shit.
It's actually answerable to someone other than a shareholder at any point of the entire fucking process.
Yeah, exactly. And we were talking about Andy Burnham before. Like, Greater Manchester is only legally... This drove me insane. Andy Burnham is only legally allowed to do this public takeover. That's because he's got the new, like, combined mayoral authority, like the legal hat. And if you have one of those, you can take over. But if you don't have one of those, and you're just a local council, you have to get permission from Grant Shapps at the Department of Transport to do it, to locally own your bus company. And then you have to wait for secondary legislation to pass, in the meantime of which was going to take like a year at most optimistic. Stagecoach is going to intervene and take Grant Shapps to a day at the races and fuck you over, because they have way more power and lobbying power than you, and that's how it always fucking happens. Amazingly, so far as I understand it, it's at the complete discretion of the transport secretary, him or herself, whether or not your council could even get that permission. because the strategy document says the Department of Transport will only do it if they believe the local authority can do it. And belief is made up.
So it's economics, right?
Yeah.
Listen, if anything, the last couple of days have given me an indication of it's that Grant Shapps is actually a very reasonable man who listens to the people.
I mean, in the end, there's no way, like any kind of party or any one-party state or, any bright future that we have to look forward to, if public transport and not access to, because that's what you have now, you have access to a shitty service to which you pay too much, but like genuinely, you have a right to public transport. You have a right to be able to travel to and from your work, your school, your pub, wherever the fuck you want to go. You have that right. You should have it enshrined in law. And we need to cut out these fucking vampires in the middle, because they're doing literally nobody any good except their fucking shareholders, and they're increasingly not based in the UK. So even if you wanted to do...
Your rights end where profit begins.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's one thing we should be learning is that if the bus sector was anywhere near as militantly unionised as the rail sector, then things might be not resolved, but might be at least a little bit better.
Yeah, at least for the drivers, like maybe presumably for the passengers as well. At least safer, if you remember that quote I read about them being too tired to functionally drive.
Yeah,
like that's it. That's like the bare minimum. And like you look around, like, I mean, the Tories are obviously not going to do this because they're never going to do this. It's fine. That's table stakes. But you think the fucking Labour Party under Keir Starmer is going to do any of this? You think they have the balls to go after Arriva? They fucking won't. Like, I know it's a small thing, but it's also a huge thing because, like I said, buses are incredibly important to everybody all the time. To fucking 7 billion trips a year or 70 billion trips a year. That's fucking incredibly important. How many hours people have wasted. How many fucking money people have wasted.
Keir Starmer's not gonna go after buses though, because like they're too hard to kill with his
SUV. Yeah, I guess we can knock that one in the head. So we have another episode potentially coming out soon, another After Dark, so that we can re-sane James in the post by-election period.
Can you hear the excitement in David's voice?
The utter trepidation, yes. We've also got the streams, and at the moment, still Thursdays only. I am hoping to get myself available for a couple of Monday streams here and there. So we might be able to pick up 2 days a week again, but wait out on that. T-shirts you can get from praxiscast.tmail.com, and
there's a new one.
There is a new one. One for big fans of climate change, and also get the fucking Chief O'Brien Union one. Now is the time.
Aye.
Rock up to the picket line wearing that shirt.
Exactly.
And on the note of picket lines, etc. If you're out and about and you do happen to see a picket line, absolutely fucking go up and give them a wee bit of solidarity. Let them know it's fucking great what they're doing. See if they want some water or some fucking scran brought over or something. Just fucking help them out. If you've got a wee bit of spare money lying about, then have a little look and see what unions are there and how you donate to their strike funds. Just Google dispute fund, strike fund, and whatever union it is that you're looking for, and you should be able to get that. So definitely help out where you can, and if you want to help us out where you can, then you can go to patreon.com/praxiscast. £5 a month gets you 1 bonus episode, occasionally 2, and we are working towards making that to a regular thing. So yeah,
now is the summer of our discontent.
Yeah,
well, now is the summer of their discontent. Fucking get it up them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Listen to Peace at Home, and we'll catch you later. Yes. Catch you after.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.